The UUCT care team follows up with congregants who are experiencing joys or sorrows. The care team also addresses needs of congregants. The care team can be contacted by email at careteam@uutampa.org. And now to our service.
Good morning and welcome. Before we begin our service, let us take a moment to share in our stone ritual. I place a stone for our joys. One for our sorrows. And one for our intentions for the coming week.
Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tampa's virtual service for Sunday, March 28th, 2021. I'm Pat Benedict, and I'm your worship associate today. Whether you've been a member here for years or you're visiting for the first time, we bid you welcome. We invite you to embark on a journey of spirit and of growth. Your being here with an open heart and mind is what brings a sense of sacred to settle in to each one of us. Welcome, one and all.
Please join in singing number 298, Wake Now My Senses. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with rains here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
We light our chalice today with words by Viola Abbott. As we light this chalice, May it serve to give us clarity of purpose and illumine our way as we set about doing the work of this congregation in commitment, in cooperation, and in love.
I would like to show you a picture of a flaming chalice. So here it is. It is shiny and smooth and evenly rounded. The flame burns brightly. Imagine that chalice as you look at it as a full chalice. Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it pretty much perfect? But then imagine that someone comes along and tells us that's broken. So we take a closer look. Look more closely at that chalice. It might be tempting to say, nope, definitely not. I do not know what you are talking about. It is always, it has always worked perfectly well for me. And even though I really don't think that it's broken, even if it were, I'm not the one who broke it. Like I said, it works great. So I can't imagine how it's broken. I love this chalice. How could you say that it's broken? Look at it. What do you think? Let's look some more. Is that chalice broken? But what if we turn it around and look at it from a different angle? Uh-oh, maybe it is broken. Look at that. Maybe I just couldn't see that it was broken because I was only seeing it from one angle. Now on my own, I had no way of knowing it was broken, did I? But it's still a pretty beautiful chalice. Now, lots of things in life are like our chalice. It is beautiful, and it is working really well for some of us anyway, and at least probably for most of the people who choose to keep using it. But what would you do if you picked up a chalice and ouch, there were sharp parts that you didn't expect to be there, that nobody told you were there, or places where pieces you needed were missing and it cut you? And what about me? Once I know that part of it is broken, even if I couldn't see it on my own, what do I do? Now it's possible even that sometimes the broken part, unlike this chalice image, the broken part might be so tiny that even when we're looking for it, it might be hard for some of us to find. Have you ever had a bowl or a cup that had just like a teeny tiny chip in it? A little jagged edge that it chipped off, and it looks so tiny and you might not even notice it, but if you catch your hand on it, it can really hurt, can it? And unlike a chalice, a real chalice, which we can turn all the way around and examine and see fully if we decide to, life is a lot more complicated than that, isn't it? Because there will always be angles and perspectives and experiences that we won't be able to see on our own. Sometimes we'll make assumptions without even realizing that that's what we're doing. And so what is our goal? Now the goal isn't to never miss anything, because that's not possible. We're not trying to be perfect people. We know that that's not reality. The goal is to shrink our areas of ignorance, to shrink the areas that we are not aware of or that we don't notice, what some people might call blind spots. To do that, and also to be open to learning and reflecting and repairing with an open heart when we learn that we or our communities have done or said something hurtful or missed something that's painful for somebody. Because just like we are not perfect people, our communities are not perfect communities either, are they? They can be good and beautiful and not perfect and have work that needs to be done. So, what can you do when you learn something that you love is broken? Well, let's see. One possibility, you could try really hard to always keep it turned so the broken part isn't visible and that most of the people can't see that it is, and you can just kind of hope that people won't get hurt by it and maybe it won't really be a problem. That like maybe it'll only be picked up by the parts that are whole, and so it'll pretty much be okay. But I don't know if that's a good solution. Now, you could also just give up, stop using it entirely, say that, all right, I guess it's just broken, and sometimes we might do that with some things, right? but I love this chalice. And it is so beautiful and useful. It would make me really sad to give it up because it can do and has done so much good. And I think there is another possibility besides those two. There is a Japanese tradition, a traditional art called Kitsugi. And it's an ancient art of repairing broken pottery and ceramics, often plates or bowls or teacups. And Kitsugi is a special art that requires a great deal of training and care to do well. And the way it's done is that the artisan uses gold leaf to highlight the beauty of imperfections that are still there when something that was broken has been repaired. And so anyone who sees the object is forever reminded that it was once broken. And yet, it is beautiful, isn't it? Let's look at some of these. Maybe even more beautiful than they were before because of the care and the beauty of the work of repairing the broken places. That work itself is beautiful. And so, as Unitarian Universalists, we can think about and appreciate this Japanese art and hope to learn something from it about how to be more fully who we intend to be as Unitarian Universalists. So, how about we work to heal our broken chalice? We can't make it unbroken, but maybe we can do the work together to put it back together and to make it even stronger and more beautiful than it has ever been before.
I'm like one of those Japanese bowls that was made long ago. I have some cracks in me. They have been filled with gold. That's what they used back then when they had a bowl to mend. Did not hide the cracks. It made them shine instead. So now every old scar shows from every time I broke, and anyone's eyes can see I'm not what I used to be, but in a collector's minds, all of these jagged lines make me more beautiful, worth a much higher price. I'm like one of those Japanese bowls that was made long ago. I have some cracks, you can see how they shine, of gold.
We are happy to have Reverend Kathy Schmitz with us today as our guest speaker. Reverend Kathy is an ordained Unitarian Universalist minister and is strongly influenced by Buddhist practice and teaching. She has a passion for interfaith work and is a longtime environmentalist and advocate for social justice. Semi-retired, when she's not off visiting grandchildren, Reverend Kathy resides in Orlando with her husband, Charlie Behrens.
For our time of reflection this morning, I invite you to turn your attention to the season. We have just passed the spring equinox, a moment when light and dark are balanced. We have entered the season of spring, which in the Northern Hemisphere brings longer days and new signs of life. In the Jewish tradition, we have entered the season of Passover, a celebration of the Spirit and of liberation. And with Palm Sunday, we enter Christianity's Easter season, a time of death and resurrection. May the many signs of this season inspire us to consider the possibilities of our own lives for balance, for liberation, and for new life.
Welcome, everybody. Our first hymn today is number 188 in our gray hymnal, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. So says hymn number 188 in our Unitarian Universalist hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition. The hymn is based on a poem from the 13th century Persian poet Rumi. But there is a phrase missing from the original. It speaks of vows. It is sometimes added to the hymn as a bass line. The full translation of the words of Sufi poet Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi, coming to us across the centuries, is as follows. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. It doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times. Come, yet again, come. Even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times. Come, yet again, come. How poignant. Rumi, like other Sufi poets, often spoke of love. His love for God and, more importantly, God's abundant love for the world. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times, come, God still has a place for you. Today I want to talk about broken vows. I try to be true to my word, to honor my vows, to keep my promises. Yet my experience is that I do not always succeed at this. My question this morning is, what does it mean when we don't keep our commitments, our vows, our promises? In reflecting on this, I came up with 4 ways that this might happen. Perhaps you'll think of others. I want to quickly dispense with one of them, and that is when people break their vows cavalierly, almost as if they were lying when they made them in the first place. This is not my subject today. I would simply suggest that while we will break our promises, we would do well not to do it lightly. But what about those other times when we break our promises that we really meant to keep? I'll go into each way in detail in a moment, but first let me lay out the 3 ways that occurred to me. First, we break our promises because we're human. We don't always live up to our best intentions, in which case we may need forgiveness from others and from ourselves. Second, we break our commitments when we are bold enough to think that we have more control than we do, in which case we need humility. Third, we break our vows when we realize it is a moral imperative to do so, when we realize that our health and safety, or the health and safety of others, requires us to do so, in which case we may need courage. Let's consider these in order. First, we break our promises because we are human. We do not always live up to our best intentions. We mean to do what we said we would do, but temptation, desire, greed, fear, fatigue kick in. Let me give you a very lightweight example from my own life. When I first discovered Unitarian Universalism, I jumped in with both feet. I got very involved in my new congregation as a lay person. I volunteered for everything. So it was no surprise that when the time came for the annual pledge drive, I was asked to be a visiting steward. That is, one of the people who would sit down with others and talk to them about their financial commitment and what they could do for the congregation the following year. I gave my reflective answer. Sure, why not? Except, I was raised as an ethnic Yankee, and we don't talk about money. Every time I tried to work up my courage to arrange my required visits, I felt sick to my stomach. After losing much sleep, one night at midnight, I wrote a note resigning from the committee. I felt awful. I just couldn't do it, and I was sure everyone else thought I was awful. But word must not have traveled too far, because a year or 2 later, I was asked again, and I said yes again, and I backed out again. I did not follow through on my commitments. Fortunately, I was forgiven. In the years since then, which included a seminary degree and 20 years in the ministry, I've become much better at talking with people about money, especially the money that congregations need to provide their life-saving ministries to the community. That money I can talk about. Still, that broken vow and the forgiveness I received continue to inform me. I am so grateful for those who are able and willing to have those money conversations and do so for the good of our ministries. And I work to be forgiving of those who back out of their commitments for very human, if not entirely rational reasons. Now, you remember that Unitarian Universalism is the result of the merger of 2 earlier traditions, the Unitarians and the Universalists. They merged in 1961. I want to talk about the Universalists. They got their name because of their deep belief in universal salvation. That is, they believed that all people would be saved. This was not a comment on the nature of humankind. It was a comment on the nature of God. They believed that God was too good to damn people. I believe this is the root of our first Unitarian Universalist Association principle that says, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The inherent worth and dignity of every person. Oh, and you know, some days that can be a challenge. But it is a challenge to which we are called, to find the good in people and to call each other back to healthy relationships. In our congregations, we are not held together by creed. We do not all believe the same thing. We are held together by our commitment to be together with all of our diverse beliefs. We are held together by covenant, the promises we make about how we will be in community. Promises we make and we break, And when we do, we call each other back to community, into covenant, back into right relationship, offering each other and ourselves forgiveness and the chance to begin again in love. So this is the first way that well-intentioned people break their vows. There are, of course, much more serious examples in backing out of a congregational commitment. I'm sure you can think of some. Still, large or small, most of us will at times need forgiveness because we are human. A second way that we break our commitments comes when we are bold enough to think that we have more control than we do. I'm very familiar with this. I'm both a planner and an optimist. I have often made plans that were unrealistic. I frequently am late because I think I can do one more thing. For a long time, I thought that was just how I was. Then I gained some insight during my participation with the Interfaith Council of Central Florida. Every month, the day before our gathering, we would get an email asking us to RSVP. I would cheerfully hit reply and say, "I'll be there." Then I noticed that a number of my interfaith colleagues nuanced their replies. They said things like, "I'll be there, God willing." I got to thinking that while I might not phrase it that way, I came to appreciate the acknowledgement that my intentions don't always get the last word. So I switched my monthly reply to, "I plan to attend." It felt like a spiritual practice, acknowledging the difference between my plans and the unfolding future, which I do not control. Around that same time, and maybe even inspired by it, I preached a sermon in which I took exception to a well-known teacher of Master Yoda of Star Wars fame. This is a dangerous thing to do in a Unitarian Universalist context, where many describe their theological or philosophical understandings in Star Wars terms. They believe in something akin to the Force, as in, use the Force, Luke. But there is an oft-quoted scene in which Master Yoda admonishes his student, Luke Skywalker. In frustration at a difficult task, Luke complains, "I can't. It's too big. You want the impossible." And then finally, "I'll give it a try." And Yoda says, "Do or do not. There is no try." Really? There is no try? This implies that failure is impossible or, unacceptable. I fear that this could discourage us from moving forward or create unnecessary fear and shame when failure does occur. I want to know that we can do our best and learn and try again and again and again if necessary. And Yoda says, "Do or do not. There is no try." But I want try as part of my vocabulary. It keeps me humble and keeps me going forward. I can tell you that some of those who heard that earlier sermon did in fact argue with me, and that's okay. Here I am doing it again, and when you have the chance, you can feel free to argue with me as well. So sometimes we break our vows because of our humanness. We ask for forgiveness, make amends as best we can, and try to do better in the future. And other times, we default on our commitments because the promises we made were too bold. They did not align with reality or the future as it would unfold. Then, to the above actions, we add a dose of humility. But there is another time when vows are broken, and I would suggest when vows should be broken. There are times when breaking our promises is a moral imperative, when we realize that our health and safety, or the health and safety of others, is in danger, and we must not comply. Let's get right to the heart of it. If there are Jews in the attic or persons escaping slavery in the back room, then there comes a knock at the door. We must lie, breaking our commitment to honesty, but honoring our commitment to justice. If oneself and one's children are in danger from an abusive relationship or domestic situation, it's time to leave, breaking the vow to death do us part. If a group or organization to which we have pledged ourselves becomes dangerous, coercive, or cultish, we must not let that pledge hold us in place. For those of us who like to keep our promises, it can be difficult to turn away from them. In addition to our own conscience, we may find ourselves judged harshly by others or in trouble with the law. We may need courage. We should not take breaking our vows lightly, but when it becomes necessary, we can do it with confidence, knowing that in the complex weaving of life, the right path for us in any given time and place is determined by many factors. The vows we have made are just one of them. Jonathan Haidt is a social psychologist with a focus on the psychology of morality. He is the author of the book, The Righteous Mind. Haidt has identified 6 value areas that people use in varying degrees as they navigate life. The interesting thing is that different people put their emphasis on different areas. Here are the 6 areas. See which ones resonate with you. Care versus harm, fairness versus cheating, loyalty versus betrayal, authority versus subversion, sanctity versus degradation, and liberty versus oppression, this last one being added later in his work. So again, care, fairness, loyalty, authority, and sanctity. Haidt claims that all people use all of these, but those who are classified as liberal tend to value care and fairness more than the others. This can help explain some of the divisions in our country today, some of the ways we tend to talk past each other. So, for example, if one gives priority to caring and fairness, in the name of caring for others, they might buck authority. In the name of fairness or justice, they might defy loyalty, breaking promises. But some who hold those values as equal might find it more difficult to buck authority or defy loyalty. And it can look to others like they don't care about fairness or care. They do, there's just more tension. Society today seems to be promoting absolutist thinking, either this or that. Things are either right or wrong, but life is rarely that simple. We must find the balance between the priorities that pull on us, including our own values and the vows we have made. So as part of the human experience, our building of authentic relationships and beloved community, we will make commitments and promises and take vows. May we make them with authenticity. May we keep them as we are able and ask forgiveness when we must and seek humility to keep us honest. And may we be bold and courageous enough to know when our path must go another way, when we must break our vows and our loyalty must be put aside for a higher purpose. May our truest commitment be toward creating a peaceful, just, and sustainable world for all, today and every day. May it be so.
To support the UUCT with your generous financial gifts, please go to the UUCT website and click on the Click Here link to donate. It will take you to our donation page, and you can securely make your donation to the church. Thank you.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Through many dangers, toils, and strife, we have already come. Was grace that got us safe this far, and grace will lead us home. Take it. Sing it with me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
We extinguish our chalice with these words by Reverend Scott Taylor. In the end, they will know our commitments by our actions. They will measure our legacy by our loyalty to the long haul. Our strength lies in the willingness to bear the burdens of others. Our love lives on to the degree we choose to offer it, when offering isn't easy. So let us choose wisely with great intention and care, knowing it's not simply we who make promises. Our promises also make us. So faithfully, friends, let us travel into the new day. Amen.
Now, everybody, we're going to sing number 95 in our hymnals, There's More Love Somewhere. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. And I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. And I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. And there is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. And I'm gonna keep on until I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
This concludes our service for today. Thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you found something to take with you to think about throughout the week. May peace, love, and compassion remain in our hearts until again we meet.